Hello, hello, hello. Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to Crypto Live with Bitcoin Bravado. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest in the proverbial building. CryptoCred is joining us for today's show.
What's up, boys? How's everyone doing? Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here, my friend, my mentor, my confidant. How are you, sir?
Yeah, I'm well. I'm well as can be, I suppose. How are you doing, boys?
Doing quite well. Thank you for asking. Broski, how's your Friday going?
It's a beautiful day. I just before this had Thanksgiving dinner with my 3-year-old's class at her school, which is always fantastic to have those nice little dad moments. But it's good to be on the show, man. I'm excited to dig into these projects that we got to talk about.
Yeah, I enjoy these Friday shows where the community gets to vote on a couple of coins we've never heard of, and then we take a couple of days to do some research and talk about them. And I think it's important to remember that our opinion is not the word of the Lord, unless, of course, you're cred and you're talking about TA. But but I am excited to dive into these. Quick intro: if you are living under a rock and don't know who CryptoCred is, check him out on Twitter at CryptoCred. He is somebody who I met very, very early in my Twitter kind of me coming onto Twitter and Discord and everything else. Probably almost a year and a half ago in a private Discord, and he was putting up some nasty TA, and I learned a lot from him early when I started actually trading full time. And Cred, man, I've enjoyed watching you grow. I've enjoyed watching you just explode into popularity, and it's all well deserved. Say a couple quick words for us, my son.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I go by Cred on the internet. Most of my content revolves around Japanese candlestick charts, and that's why people invite me on shows like this.
For your Japanese candlesticks.
Yes, that is correct. I mean, there's fuck all else to enjoy. So
we're looking forward to the banter. You know, it's awesome to have you on, man. I think everyone at some point in time in their crypto journey will come into contact with one of your TA videos on YouTube. I know that I spent hours, and it's humbling, right? Because every time I think that I know everything, I'll just listen to one of your or watch one of your videos for a half hour and realize what a dumbass I am and how much I still have to learn. So
he's got that voice, though. He's just got that good voice.
He does.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I'll never know how many people watch my content for the actual substance versus how it fucking sounds, but I try not to think about it.
Well, very, very excited to have you, as stated. Broski, why don't you give the people our disclaimer?
Yes. So those of you who are tuning in, of course, we are not financial advisors. None of what we're saying should be taken as financial advice. We are just here to have a good time. Hopefully you get some education from it, mostly entertainment, though. So without further ado, we're going to get right into today's first topic and kind of the old news that we just want to recap, and that is the general fuckery that surrounded the Bitcoin Cash fork, and how has it impacted Bitcoin? Did it impact Bitcoin? Since we've got a veritable guru on the show, Cred, what are your thoughts, man? How do you feel, or do you feel that one has impacted the other in this case?
Sure. I mean, I don't know about who the veritable guru is, but I can certainly have a go. So, I mean, from a purely technical point of view, I think it almost doesn't matter, right? Because as far as we know, the level, as in the yearly lows around 6,000, 5,800, has been lost. And so what caused it to be lost, at least from a trading perspective, is almost fucking irrelevant, right? Because if it's some bullshit, then the level will get reclaimed, and then you can still get your long entry without even knowing the fundamentals. If it's a valid reason, then the level won't get reclaimed and we'll trade lower, right? I think it's really tempting as traders to try to figure out the reason behind every move and say this person did this, or this entity, or this happened here, or is it a support resistance, a supply zone, whatever you want to call it. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. It's like, can you actually trade the price movement and structure? So I think it's definitely, on its face, reasonable or plausible to posit that all this hash rate, moving away the hash rate from Bitcoin and all these fork wars and everything affected the level. But now that it's fucking gone, then you didn't act on it. It doesn't really matter anymore, right?
Yeah, I think that is just hitting the nail on the head as expected. I do want to ask you, though, about, I'm sure you followed along with the Roger Ver and Craig Wright war. How is everything that they're saying to one another on Twitter not going to be Exhibit A and Exhibit B in some massive indictment in the future? I mean, this is absolutely insane Craig Wright comes right out and says, I will dump Bitcoin to $1,000 if I have to win this hash war. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that general tomfoolery?
Well, I do want to add to that comment, because on top of that, he gave a time when he was going to do it. So he didn't just say, haha, this could happen. Someone actually replied, well, I mean, if you've got so much Bitcoin, why don't you do that? And he said, that's for 2019. So he's
yeah, I mean, the battle of the egomaniacs is pretty fucking terrifying to look at. In terms of what he actually said, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, not formally anyway, but I think if it's just his own stack, he can talk about dumping it whenever he fucking wants. Right. So there's a difference between he's not in charge of Bitcoin. Right. So if there's a difference between Elon Musk, who's holding a sensitive position as a director of a publicly traded, not fucking token, but stock, saying something, because we know that that will affect the price for sure. But if it's someone like him with no sort of claim of ownership, contrary to what he tried to express of Bitcoin, saying that he plans to dump his stack, I don't know if he'll be in trouble. But maybe the price will be in trouble, as recent evidence has indicated. But legally, I mean, fuck, ask a lawyer, man.
Yeah, when Crypto Bully on the podcast,
exactly.
we'll get him on and figure that out.
Well, so I know we're going to get into a Bitcoin analysis in more detail at the end of the show. So stick around if that's what you're here for. From the chat, it looks like there are a lot of community members who have joined us to hear what we have to say about the projects that we're going to cover. Today, we are talking about U-Network and Sentinel, and we're going to get right into those, spend some time talking about them. You're going to get our honest opinion, love it or hate it. We're going to share with you what we feel from more of a startup perspective and less of a review of a coin or a trade. We will talk about how their charts look, but we just want you to know we're taking a different mindset to this, and we're coming in as skeptics. We're not coming in as bag holders who are super excited about these projects. We want to take a stance that allows us to be smarter with the way that we're looking at these. So, do we want to start with Sentinel or UUU?
Yeah, we'll jump right in and start talking about Sentinel. I think it's a solid place to start. So shout out all the Sent homies out in the chat right now on YouTube. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and smash that like. Craig, is that how we do it? I forget what you told me before the show. You smash the like button or smash the subscribe button? I can't recall. Both. Okay. So make sure you do both those things, and we will hop right on in. So privacy. This is the theme of so many cryptocurrencies that we cover. You guys voted on Sentinel, so we started to dive right in. And I'm actually going to share my screen as I go ahead and explain some of the fundamentals. We figured it would be a little bit easier for you guys to follow if one person kind of covers the high level of what we learned, because we've already spoken privately, and then we'll open it up for discussion on different topics. So I'm going to talk through Sentinel for the next couple of minutes, and Broski will cover UUU, and we will obviously talk in detail about both. And don't worry, we will take a look at the chart for both as well, for those traders out there or potential investors if you're curious as to how we might follow or fade these coins. So again, appreciate you guys being here. Without further ado, I will go ahead and hop right on in. So I'm going to share my screen, and while I'm pulling this up, Sentinel is essentially currently the MVP at least, is a decentralized virtual private network, or VPN. But that is kind of only where they begin. So I'm going to go through their website a little bit and try to show you guys some of the things that they kind of put out there. So they use a lot of words. I'm going to share my opinions before the end of this on what needs to happen in order for Sentinel to gain the type of traction that I think they need for their token to appreciate and value from a fundamental perspective. That doesn't necessarily need to be in play for a token to pump. As a matter of fact, I think as we've seen, most price action has nothing to do with the true fundamentals and its speculative value. So what Sentinel is essentially building, I really, really like. I actually already have exposure to some competitors of Sentinel, in particular QLC. There's Mysterium. They also have DVPN products, but are also focusing on enhanced kind of user privacy. So as you see here on their website, essentially there is no, I think this is very early stage. This is a token that has not done an ICO. They have a $4 million market cap. They do about $50,000 a day in volume currently, and you can trade them on HitBTC, IDEX, and a couple of others. So just for the volume perspective alone, this won't be something that I look to buy here soon. But essentially, what this is it's supposed to be a privacy layer. Data moves on the internet, right? So data moves all through different websites, and people are moving data, sharing data, and they're communicating. The problem with the existing world that we live in, the technological world that we live in, is that data is currently centralized, and that's where blockchain comes in, and that's where the companies trying to solve these problems come in as well. They're looking to decentralize the communication and the way that data is stored and moved and monetized, and allow for a lot of privacy. So that's the problem that Sentinel is trying to solve. They're trying to be this essentially decentralized privacy layer. So initially, they have their VPN product. This is their first product that's currently available, and you can download it if you have an Android device. I don't believe that you can download it on the iPhone yet. I wasn't able to find that, so I was not able to test it out. I currently use NordVPN. Do you guys on the stream, you guys use a VPN service today?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yep. Broski, which one do you guys use?
Go on, you go first, mate.
Bitdefender. So.
Right. I was using NordVPN. Then the mobile app decided to give me some grief. So I rage quit, and now I use private internet access, PIA.
Okay. Okay, great. I use NordVPN as well. I like it because it is double encrypted. So we know that there's a market for VPNs. So we're going to focus on VPNs, and then I'm going to talk a little bit more about the other layers of Sentinel. But before I do want to give an actual quick shout out to Panama Crypto. If you follow him on Medium, he wrote a really good write-up on Sentinel and what it is. I learned a lot from that in doing my research in addition to reading the light paper. So diving more into the actual problem of privacy on the internet or in using these different applications. Is there a market for this? So the VPN market is currently $15 billion or so a year in revenue. So does Sentinel have a shot at capturing that market from a company like Nord? Personally, they are probably not going to see a huge increase in value for that reason. Until they have a lot more mainstream adoption of their privacy products. So again, we will kind of get into that. But what do you guys think? Do you get excited at all as an investor or as a trader when you think of like consumer privacy or business privacy? Is this a market that you want exposure to, Cred and Broski?
Cred, go ahead.
Well, for me personally, I think. By the way, just in case it's not clear, I'm nowhere near as learned as my colleagues here on these matters, right? So add in a few extra grams of salt. But generally, I'm asked, why would I use a VPN? Or for my purposes or my context using a VPN, it's more basic sort of security functions. And so, if I log into a site and then the database gets leaked and there's an IP that's logged my login, so it doesn't exactly point to my home address, right? For example. So for me, it's just like a basic layer of operational security. And for that reason, I really don't mind going to tried, truly established, non-crazy fancy tech, white paper, all of that, just the VPN that works. I can kind of throw onto my browser as an application and just use it for that. I suppose if you have broader concerns about centralization, privacy, etc., I think even then, a lot of sites do an excellent sort of in-depth technical comparison of VPNs, like which one leak DNS, who stores what, etc. So I'm personally not massively persuaded, at least on the VPN front, though I know there's other stuff there, but I'm sure you have more valuable things to say.
So, my thoughts on this situation, when it comes to OPSEC, especially in cryptocurrency, it's very important. It's important to have your security on point at all times. From a broader perspective, taking a business look at things, of course, as we get to a society where things are more based on the Internet of Things, and there's connectivity between all devices, and security is going to play a big part. So I can see I can see kind of where they're trying to work in with Sentinel and how the importance of creating this VPN could be big. But I mean, I want exposure to the space, yes, to answer your question. But I don't know that the current products that are out there are lacking so as to invite someone to take market share, if that makes sense. I don't think that there's a big enough problem with what currently exists that something else is going to come and steal market share from them, frankly speaking.
So here's what I like about what Sentinel did. Okay, as I mentioned, as far as I can tell, there was no type of a public sale or any of that tomfoolery with Sent. So what they did was they built an MVP, and they chose for that MVP to be VPN, probably because it has the most well-known use case in crypto. They're also building decentralized chat, decentralized voice over IP, and basically a total suite of decom products for not just consumers, but I think they're really focusing on working with developers. So they have a really developer-friendly SDK. And one of the things that Sentinel, that I don't like about Sentinel is that I can't find almost anything about their team. One of the things I love about Sentinel is that doesn't matter as much when the execution is there. And when you pull up their GitHub, they have one of the most active GitHub repositories that you'll see as you go through it. They've committed to doing 300 hours a week of development work. They've said that they have the funding necessary to continue to work through on marketing in 2019. And they've had over 1,000 commits on their GitHub, with the most recent being 10 days ago. Cred, when you're evaluating an altcoin, if you know they have a public repository, do you take those types of fundamentals into account when making a purchase of a particular shitcoin? Do you check their GitHub to see how active they've been, or are you not usually putting too much weight on that sort of stuff?
Sure. I mean, in my own very personal trading, no. But to be completely honest with you, I think you need someone with a much more technical background, because GitHub activity in itself isn't necessarily all good or useful or indicative of much, right? You can be very active, but not actually developing a lot and just kind of doing minor fixes and working on things on the side or whatever else. So that's a critique that I've seen many of my much more learned fundamental friends make, that a lot of people point to GitHub activity, but are unable to substantively evaluate, is this kind of, meaningful activity, or does this actually contribute to the development of what's being promised?
Because we don't really know what we're looking at, right? As laymen's or as non-technical developers.
Don't. I mean, so when it comes to the GitHub stuff, if I wanted to get a gauge of whether progress is being made, I would be very careful to just look at the number of commits or whatever else, and get someone with an eye for these things to say, what are they actually working on, as opposed to how much work are they doing.
Yeah.
And whether or not you're going to trade or invest. And I don't know how much you make a difference between the two, but only 20% of my portfolio am I ever really willing to have in any trading stack where I'm trying to flip shitcoins for different reasons, news or whatever. I don't care about the GitHub for that. Now, if I am saying like, all right, Cent is absolutely destroyed from a price standpoint, and it's almost as cheap. It's still got some downside from a bottom standpoint because it was already cheaper than this. So right now it's up about 2x. I'm not going to look at their GitHub to try to make the determination as to whether or not I want to trade, but in order to make an investment, sure. But there's a lot of cryptos that don't have public repositories. So people out there listening, don't put too much weight on that. So the DVPN client is cool. Let me go ahead and show you though where they're going to need to step up in order to, and I'm sure this is on the roadmap, or on the plan. They do have a fairly anon team, as I stated before, but so does Bitcoin and many other respected products.
And I want to talk about that just to jump in.
Go ahead. While I'm pulling this up.
So having the anon team is, in this case, I think it's a double-edged sword, because obviously when you're providing a product that essentially allows citizens to circumvent their country's internet laws, you don't want to be able to be found that easily, right? If I am a Chinese business owner producing a product that allows Chinese citizens to circumvent Chinese VPN laws, I don't really want to put my face out there. I'm not eager to spend time in jail. But on the other side of that, from a larger institutional perspective, if I was a company and I was going to stake the company's security on another company, I would want to know who's the CEO, who can I hold responsible if something goes awry. So I think it is a double-edged sword, but I can totally understand why they don't have their faces on their website.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And sometimes they just don't want to get too distracted. They don't want the public to get distracted by the team. I've seen young people with limited experience who might not do a lot of good for selling a team, right? Because there's teams out there that are stacked. So if you're a fairly young development team or inexperienced, it might be held against you, and you'd rather your execution speak for you. A young, inexperienced development team built Grubhub into a $13 billion publicly traded company. I don't want to put too much weight aside. So what some people have said in the chat is having a working product in crypto, you still have to compete with the non-crypto market. And that's absolutely true. I think that the long-term fans of Sentinel are saying that in 5 to 10 years, absolutely decentralization is kind of the centerpiece to the entirety of Web 3.0, is that kind of decentralized nature. And so companies that are building infrastructure today are going to have the best chance of success. And Sentinel is trying to build infrastructure. Again, with their SDK, they want people to develop on their platform for their own DApps. They want them to use the Sentinel, the Sentinel underlying technology, I should say. I don't want to say protocol. They're currently on, or they were at least on the Ethereum network. Now they've switched over to someone in the chat, remind me what it's called, but it's a lesser known development product. So they have a desktop wallet. Here's what I really like. They have a desktop wallet that is essentially like a shapeshifter. Have you guys ever used Shapeshift before to convert or swap?
I have not.
Can't say I have.
I haven't either. I just haven't had the need, but it's another decent use case because essentially it allows you to anonymously swap Sentinel tokens for other tokens. And I think, there's entire businesses built around that. The suite of products, in order for Sentinel to gain value from a use case, they're going to have a use. They're going to have a lot of people using their VPN, their DVOP, their on-chain swaps, their DChat. They're going to need people using it. This is currently what you're seeing on my screen is currently how they're selling themselves, right? In comparison to, let's just say, if they were focusing on their VPN product, this is the capture page for NordVPN. And as you can see, there's a clear CTA here. There's a clear call to action. As someone who's obsessed with the sales side of startups, Sentinel is not doing a good job, obviously, at driving users to their VPN product. Because I had a difficult time finding any outward facing like landing page to the Sentinel VPN product. So for starters, if you want people to use your VPN, I'm going to need to see that you're actively trying to sell that. And when you land on this site, it's so indicative of crypto startups. You go to their websites and it does a shit job of selling you on what their product was. And it's pretty, it's beautifully built, it's responsive, it uses tons of buzzwords, but Sentinel, your website does a shit job of selling your vision here. You have to dumb this down, in my opinion, tenfold and start converting the traffic that you get to this website to some type of a user, even if it's a free user of your VPN product. As you build that traction, I think you're going to have a better time driving value to your token without the speculative investment piece. So, Cred, do you mind sharing your screen and pulling up the Sentinel chart so we can take a look at the technical perspective?
One moment. Sure. Yeah, one sec. Let me get this Chrome tab going. Right. Can you see?
Yep.
Yes.
Sure
and my
can.
cursor moving as well? The smiley face here. Okay. So there are a lot of people listening, so let's try to narrate this. In general, the context I have in mind is that the markets are looking a bit vulnerable. I'm sure you all know that. But generally it means, if you have breakout conditions or breakdown conditions, the likelihood of just a clean textbook continuation isn't necessarily going to be super likely, right? When these crazy macro things happen, the TA can get a bit choppy. But just looking at Sentinel here, I'm looking at the daily chart if anyone wants to follow on the podcast retroactively.
Coinsignals.trade.
That's right, coinsignals.trade. So on the 7th, you had this big daily move, which spanned about, I'm not even going to try, but about 80%, right? And impressively, price has so far managed to kind of hold. So price went up a lot, it retraced, and it's managed to hold the low of the retracement, which is usually a pretty decently bullish sign, right? So whenever you have a big move up and then price starts going sideways, as it is here, the likelihood of continuation in the original direction is higher than the likelihood of a breakdown, okay? In general, for any Sentinel buyers, what I like to look for is the pre-breakout level, which basically means the structure that was formed before an explosive move kind of the point of origin, if you will, I'd usually like for that to hold. So in this case, the low of that comes out to, on this platform, at about 2,400, right? Or 240, however you want to look at it. As long as that low holds, it looks reasonably healthy, but I would just be generally, personally at least, I'm being very careful with my exposure before I get a decent grip of what Bitcoin wants to do. But yeah, summary, really nice move up. So far, it's good news that it's held the retracement after that crazy 80% move. And what we don't want to see is basically a lower low, right? So higher high is bullish, retracements are for buying, and we don't want a lower low because then that's bad news.
Yeah, there's nothing underneath it, right? I was looking at the same thing. Now, take all this with a grain of salt. I want to reiterate, this coin has $50,000 a day in volume. I can't buy this if I want to. So if you're going to look into this, I think it's a project that you watch. I think the short-term value for Sentinel is in their DVPN because their consumer demographic, broski, is crypto folks, right? So what are we using? Are we using voice over IP? No. Or am I using decentralized chat? Maybe. Am I using a VPN? Probably, right? And so I think you sell the VPN. I think that's where you build your public image around. And then you have all these wonderful tools behind the brand. When you go to Nord's website, Nord probably has all kinds of cool technology they're working on. They're not sitting there explaining to you all this bullshit. And it's not Sentinel's fault. This has been conditioned by the crypto market. Every website you go to, even QLC chain, and full disclosure, I'm a bag holder of QLC. I'm a fan of it. I like exposure to space. I love the problems that Sentinel's trying to solve. I think it's hugely important, right? But with all that being said, if I'm fairly, I know how to dig through a crypto product pretty quickly and get a good feel. It took me 10, 15 minutes just to get acquainted with what Sentinel even was, right? And so that's a problem. I think they need to sell their DVPN product and say, hey, we have other cool D products as well and D apps can build on top of our platform, and we have all this cool stuff. They have this marketplace. They have big ideas. I think they're sticking all those ideas on a very pretty website. They're doing a really shit job of selling it. That's just honest and fair feedback. And
from a professional salesperson who has done that for quite a long time, understands what people are looking for when they're going to something. To add to that, you're spot on. I mean, if you visit a website, especially for a new company or a new product, you cannot sell 15 different things at once. You need to focus. If you're brand new in a space, you need to focus on one product, be the fucking best at it, market that product. And then once people are in on that product, then you can open up and say, hey, we've served your needs here. Here's the other ancillary products that we have that could also be beneficial. So, and you know what? To be fair to them, I think that's their goal. I think they know that. That's why they started with the DVPN and said this is going to be our MVP. So I think the people behind that are running the team, I think they are pretty aware of that. And I think that their focus, they're probably not spending money on Google ads right now to sell their VPN. So they don't need to drive traffic to a landing page. But when you guys do, if you're listening, and I hope someone who has access to the team is, when you start that process of consumer discovery, the website that you have now is not going to hold up, in my opinion, just because it's too damn confusing, and it's difficult to follow exactly what you're doing. I imagine you haven't spent money on advertising yet or anything, but if you are getting web traffic right now, you're not doing anything with it. You're getting 10,000 users a week to your website. You're not collecting any consumer data, and you're not giving them a good idea of what you sell. And that's no necessary fault of a small team. Guys, you're a startup. If you don't have any expert sales people on your team, it looks like you guys are doing a good job. So if you are listening, I'm not trying to dig into you too much at all. And I actually really love the problems that Sentinel is trying to solve. I think that for small businesses in the world right now, I think as they evolve into Web 3.0, they're going to need companies who can help them with infrastructure on the decentralization side. And I think Sentinel does that. For me, short term, it's a fade. I'm not buying this coin in a bear market, and there's just not enough volume. But I am going to keep a close eye on Sentinel because I've enjoyed when I started reading through the light paper and I've seen how active their community is. I've enjoyed learning about it. So I am actually going to keep a close eye on Sentinel. What do you guys think? Follow or fade? Go ahead, Cred.
I should have said this at the beginning, but with coins like this and with this type of volume, the effectiveness of TA is really kind of linked to how deep and liquid the market is. So Forex behaves really well technically. Bitcoin behaves really well technically, but other things like this don't, right? You don't want circumstances where something looks pretty bullish and then some dude with a big stack comes in and just rage dumps, right? So things that are more prone to that type of stuff, the TA becomes less useful. But I mean, I would watch the project. Yeah, certainly. I think if, as you mentioned, to get some salespeople on board and really can at least drive the first product home, and also the things that Birch mentioned, which are very interesting about the accountability and transparency of the team, just getting some more information there. I think if they make those moves, I don't see why I'd ignore it.
Yeah. So from my standpoint, I have traded Cent before. This was a trade that I took when it first hit the market in, I believe, the end of May. April. It was end of April, beginning of May, and it was a quick flip. It was something I just I caught for the write up.
They had shit timing, right? They joined at the worst. They got listed at the worst time.
Well, and they're on hit BTC, which I mean is notorious for. I mean, you're just not able to get a coin off. So let's say I wanted to buy and hold it. I don't want to hold it on hit BTC, but to take it off of that exchange, the fees are astronomical. So I mean, they basically force you to just be a trader of certain projects. But anyways, this is something that I'll continue to follow. I like the project. You need to get a 2-minute video on your landing page for your website to more accurately describe what you guys are doing. That'll kill the problem and pose a good solution. But once you guys get onto an exchange with some better liquidity, I'm a buyer.
And I'm a daily VPN user across every single device. Mm-hmm. You're going to have a customer in me if the product. So Panama used the product, by the way, and I respect Panama a lot from a tech perspective as well. And he said it was exactly the same as using Nord. It had the same lag time and everything was pretty smooth. And no one knows that you're using a decentralized blockchain product. And that's great. That's what you need to have in order for that product to sell. And I can't wait to see the DChat and voice ORP and on-chain swaps. I think it's all great. So we'll see. Sure. As a final point, and then we'll jump into UUU, guys. Cent also has good community. You wouldn't be talked about right now if you weren't voted on by the community. So obviously that gives me some optimism there. But because they didn't do a sale, also I know of competitors that have $20+ million liquid assets, and that's going to allow them to survive an extended bear market if 2019 is as bad as 2018 was. I can't say that that's not true for Cent, but I can't say that it is because I don't know what they're working with and what their runway and what their burn rate is. I imagine it's mostly developers working for Cent tokens or for free, so they probably have fairly low overhead and they're not spending money on marketing. So if that's the case and they have some private funding and they can last 6 months, they have a shot. If they have a month of runway and they don't have any funding, the project is unfortunately going to go to zero. So maybe some transparency on what the health of the company is could be beneficial in the future. So thank you guys who voted on Cent. Hopefully this gives you something intriguing to think about and you can start to DYOR and make your own decisions about it.
For sure. So, jumping right into UNetwork, ticker symbol is UUU. Basically, UNetwork is a decentralized protocol for publishing and valuing online content. And initially coming out of the gate, they marketed themselves as a Steam competitor, a better version of Steemit. Steemit, if those of you who have ever used it, it's a similar concept where people who publish content are able to get paid for the content that they're publishing. It was born out of changes that were made to YouTube's policies and other content publishing platforms policies where they were not properly rewarding the people that were putting content out. So what UNetwork has done differently is through the creation of Sugar, which is their currency, you're able to pay to upvote certain people's content, and it's basically like making an investment in it. So if I'm a content creator, I can put something on UNetwork, and it's out there. If people like it, they can pay to upvote it. They're investing in my content. Should that content prove to be something that goes viral, I, as an upvoter / investor, am going to be receiving Sugar back for the solid vote for a good project. So
now Sugar's just a marketing piece, right? Like that's just a cuter. That's an easier way of saying UUU.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because UUU sounds. I mean, to say it over and over again sounds fucking stupid. But yeah. And listen, I do. In full disclosure, I have held a bag of UUU for a while. It's something that I like from a trader's perspective. We'll get into that in a minute. But for the project itself, as you go through this, one of the problems that's major out there that I think is big and that they are posing a solution for is that if you do post something on Steam, right, or Steemit, I can implement a bot to upvote my own content. So what this does is this allows people to falsify the actual rankings that are there. It drives traffic to things illegitimately, so to speak. So this is allowing people who are providing good content, who maybe don't have the resources to implement bots, are able to get a fair shake in the market. So I do like that aspect. I like that they're a protocol. So I'm not an incredibly technical person, but they are on the PBFT algorithm, which is the practical Byzantine fault tolerance, which is, I believe, the same as NEO. So don't quote me on that. I'm not a dev, but I'm pretty sure. So that's a good
fault tolerance is a fancy way of saying blockchain.
Boom. There you go. So, from that perspective, they've got a lot that I think is good. They are rolling out their mainnet at the end of this month. They've got their community pump. I'm sorry.
Say that again. They're rolling out their
mainnet at the end of this month.
Let's get it.
Okay.
That's a big piece of FA, right?
So, and that's important to look at. Their testnet has been from all viewpoints going off without a hitch. GitHub is okay. I don't really gauge the GitHub activity too much, but there have been updates as of yesterday, so that's good enough for me. When I look at a GitHub, I'm just looking at it like I want to see that there's been something over the last couple of months, right? Because the way that I look at it, if somebody's running a testnet, maybe they don't need to update their GitHub repository throughout the time that testnet is running. Maybe they're doing things behind the scenes to make improvements. So anyways, what is going to be really big, I think, is in December when uCommunity launches. So they've already got the smart contracts deployed on uCommunity, which is basically just that, a community of authors, users, explorers, moderators, all adding value to this network. And I think that there is the ability for them to actually steal a little bit of market share from Steemit. And there are a lot of people out there that want to be the next best thing, right? There's the BitTubes, the Steemits. Everyone is trying to compete or take market share from YouTube, which in my opinion ain't gonna fucking happen. But I think that there is the ability for them to compete on a certain level with like a medium. I think there is the ability for that kind of content to actually have the potential to make an impact. But for video content, I mean, if it's not YouTube, it's Twitch, right? So I don't think that that's really a valid thing.
Now, do you think that there's an infrastructure play here? So if Steemit is huge. Steemit did very well. Steemit kind of has first mover. It was worth over $1 billion at some point. I think it's like $130 million market cap now. So if you're doing a competitive analysis, right, and you're just comparing it to its most the competitor that looks on the surface the closest, it's Steemit, then UUU has massive upside, right? You're gonna look at this and say like, wow, if this can do what Steemit did, yada yada yada. Now, that's only one part of the puzzle. Obviously, if you're buying a house for instance, you're going to look at what other houses in that neighborhood have sold for, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the same house, right? To your point, I love the idea of paying for an upvote, but would you ever pay to upvote CryptoCred's content? I mean, that's the best content in TA, right? So if you love it so much, would you pay just to like his YouTube video? And how much would you pay? I'm curious, the guys in the chat too. Like, would you pay to show your support by liking a video of CryptoCreds, for instance?
Lots of people do. I mean, I've watched a lot of YouTube videos where people will actually donate to a super chat because they appreciate the content. I can appreciate paying for quality service. So,
absolutely,
I would pay for. I mean, in Cred's case, I would definitely pay for a TA course because I know he knows his shit and it's something that I could learn from. So if there was value in it, yeah, man. If there's value,
my understanding is that you're not paying to access the content. You're paying after the fact if you like it. Right. So yes, I would pay all day for, I could sell anything. I pay all day for a lot of things. And then afterwards, if you ask someone, hey, would you pay for it again? That's when the question starts to arise. Yeah. I'm thinking more like Steam. When I see like it's 20 cents, right? It's 10 cents. Obviously, I would pay any amount of money to show CryptoCred my appreciation. But if you're just someone outside of the circle and you're absorbing free content, I'm curious as to how much use it'll really get, because this is how they eliminate the bots. Because on Steemit, they can get these bots, right, that just upvote everything. You can buy likes for YouTube videos as well. So this is trying to say, hey, this eliminates that spam because there's a cost in order to process that. And then also that shows our community what's better. So I think to incentivize it, they have something I was reading about where when you're paying to like CryptoCred's video, if CryptoCred's video then goes on to be viral and it blows up and gets a ton of usership, it's going to generate revenue
for you.
And as someone who paid to like that video early on, it's almost like an investment, because then you get earnings as a result of CryptoCred's video success. Can you break that down at all?
Absolutely. Well, so I talked a little bit about that at the beginning. So basically, when you're paying to upvote, you're making an investment in a piece. As you make that investment, should the investment bear fruit, you're getting a return on your investment. So it kind of gamifies it.
By way of what, like ad revenue?
Sure.
Or?
Yeah. Well, so the revenue itself.
No, I'm saying like.
Yeah, that I don't know. So where the money is coming from that's going to pay that back, to be honest, I have not seen. But you're going to be paid back in sugar. I get the concept, but to your point earlier, I don't know that people will actually make an investment in something like that. Now, individuals won't, I should say. But let's say I'm a publisher. Like, let's say I'm a company that publishes content and I have something on UUU network, right? I would pay. Right, I'd make that extra investment in my writer to help their content get upvoted, knowing that should that bear any kind of financial results for the writer, I'm going to be getting a percentage of that back. Sure, I think from a business perspective, if you're a company, that makes sense. If you're an individual, you just really got to be a fan.
Okay. Cred, you're a content creator. What would you need to see in order to post your content on, if it was going to take you time, energy, or resources to share your content on UNetwork, what would you need to see from them? What would attract you as a content creator?
To be completely honest with you, if you make free content, I think it's a mistake to try to do this middle ground where it's free, but it isn't, right? Like, it's free, but you can support me with, Steam, UNetwork, whatever. My videos have, whatever views they have, it's a lot. CryptoCred generates about 10, maybe $20 per month on donations overall, right? So it's really a case of, if you make the decision to make your content free, you essentially, if you're being smart about it, kind of surrender to the fact that it's not going to make you any money. I feel like it's an either or. Like, you either choose to monetize it properly, and that means you don't go through this quasi monetize where they can choose to support you but they don't have to type of thing. You either just monetize it properly, or you don't monetize it at all and you forget about the money. So as a content creator, I've always been this way with donations, tips, super chat, etc. Maybe I'm just terrible, but I've found much more mental clarity in just resigning to the fact that if you make the content free, don't expect any money from it. If you want to make money from your content, be ready to charge and monetize it properly. So I'm a bit on the skeptical side, just from my personal experience.
Yeah, so I like UUU as a potential investment, as my non-investment advice, solely because they have the backing of Draper and Qdom and Poe, and one of their advisors is the founder of Alf, which is a coin we covered on the podcast that I like. I expect that their connections and their large team and their Asian presence will continue to bring them closer to more volume from a trading perspective. So I like it because it's so cheap. $4.4 million market cap, Steam $136 million. And with the team and the partners they have kind of behind them, it's hard to ignore. Broski, is that more the basis of your wanting to be an investor, or do you think that they can really steal market share from Steam, which just has the brand rack at this point? Like, Steam's just got that first mover advantage. Podcast is he's showing his shitcoin tree. He's muted. You're muted right now, my guy.
So with our shitcoin tree, this is for any of the 2Xs that I've caught in 2018. UUU is up there, and it's a bag. Okay. It's a bag that I like because they have, and I know that someone mentioned it in the chat, they don't have an active marketing team, but they do have an active community. It's not huge, but they are active. And right now they're only on my favorite exchange, Huobi, and a couple of others. So, they were on Hatax, now Huobi. So they haven't really gotten their Cryptopia or KuCoin love yet, but it's coming. And when you have a coin that moves the way that this does, that, I mean, has been pretty resilient. I think the chart will show that despite the dump, it's okay. Yeah, I mean, I hold it because at this point it's a bag that I'll look to add to until they get on a tier 1. Once they're on a tier 1, that'll be I have to be a big mover.
They have tier 1 volume. They have $600,000 in volume, mostly from Hadex.
Yes.
As you mentioned. So they have a ton of volume relative to market cap, actually a fairly suspect amount of volume. Most of it is market making, which isn't a team having a market maker is not a bad thing for me. I want them to be conscious about their token movement as an investor. So that gives me a little bit, it makes me a little bit more comfortable if I'm holding this particular coin. In a bear market, again, I got to fade UUU in the short term just because this isn't something that I want to hold, as to your point, and it's not something that I think I want to trade. The mainnet coming up could make for good FA if people know about it. I had never heard of this before. I think it's still relatively unknown. So I think that they'll struggle to get some of that recognition on their mainnet.
Do we have a chart? You have a chart we can look at?
Yes.
Yeah, let's take a quick look at that.
Let me just nuke my screen share real quick, and I'll redo it. 1 sec. Share screen. Right.
And this chart's indicative of a lot of the other coins on Huobi with this kind of market cap. So go ahead. You're better.
Yeah. So usual disclaimers about TA on less busy assets, but at its most basic, for looking at the most recent price action, yeah, but I mean, this move up is pretty significant, right? So, yeah. I mean, I'm going to measure it out again, but roughly from, oops, that's not it. So roughly from the origin of the breakout to the high, maybe I'll get it one time, 1 sec. Price range, there we go. That was, 100% move, roughly, right? Depends from the use of the wick.
Yeah, quick 2x.
Quick 2x, just in a couple of days. Now it's retracing. It's retracing into quite a nice level at on this platform, coinsignals.trade, 1300 Satoshi. So it's kind of at support right now, right? And it's pretty much the same structure as I pointed out in the other one. For those podcasters watching later, whenever you see a crazy big move in the market, it's nice to go back and kind of just highlight the structure which was formed pretty much right before the breakout came, right? The point of origin of the breakout. And if I'm going to draw that here, and for those at home, as I mentioned, that's roughly the 1300 level. And so price has pulled back to that now. Ideally, if we're going to get any sort of continuation, I want the low at 1200 to hold, right? So that's basically the low before the crazy move up, right? So this is pretty basic price action. You have resistance, which we had at 1300. Price ran away and did a 2x. It's now pulled back to where it broke out from. And if it's going to stay bullish, I don't want it making a lower low, having made a higher high. But usual TA disclaimers, right? Maybe Birch, angry with the project, just comes on and rage dumps all of its Bitcoin into it. So I would be careful.
Nice.
Yeah. Be careful buying any of these lower caps anytime. Be careful buying crypto, period. Bear market low caps is especially high risk. But, because of the, and to someone's point too, I think it was Gas Trader in the comments, shout out to you. Some of those, they have a lot of logos, they have a lot of investors, they have a lot of that cute stuff on their site. And I don't hate to see that. It shows that they're connected in the space. It doesn't necessarily mean that those other projects are doing anything to actively support this particular company. A lot of that is handshake deals and stuff on the back end. It also tells me that there's probably a lot of tokens out there to be dumped at some point. Usually 6 months to 2 years in increments of quarters from the time that they launched on an exchange into the future. I'm not sure when they started trading. Do you know, Broski? Or you said it was May, right? It was like late April, May. So bad timing on that, just from a market cycle standpoint. So there's definitely some heavy bag holders of this lower cap coin, and that would bring me pause as well. But because they're so cheap, I mean, they're 14 sat. They have such high volume. With these connections, you might you might come to expect, and true utility. I think they have good utility in theory. I think you might expect to see this hit a larger volume exchange, and that's going to make for a very profitable return. The question is, when do you look to purchase? I'm probably going to be looking at those sub current support levels. I don't think it'll hold support, just market sentiment in general. I'll keep my eye on it as it breaks that support. And then I might look to get a small bag myself. May or may let you know when I may or may not let you know when I do, but it's very unique what they're trying to do. And here's what you do if you're a long-term investor or someone who wants to be a long-term investor. Try to find a way to monitor their website traffic and their search trending by using Google's tools. You can search Google and Alexa, not Amazon's Alexa, but Alexa rankings, and you can search those, and there's some will allow you to, it's not a perfect look, but you get a high level analytics on their website. A platform like UUU, U Network, in order for it to truly have that Steam level value, it's going to have to start getting Steam level traffic, or at least start trending that direction. Content creators are going to have to actually start putting content on there. They need to partner with Bravado or Cred or people like us who create content to put their content on that platform. So that way it starts to generate use. And if it does, this is a no-brainer 6 to 12 month investment at a minimum for me personally. But until then, I'm just going to keep kind of a close eye on it. And to me, it's another attempt at one of these kind of decentralized crypto social networks. And I know, Cred, you're not a huge fan of them as a just general principle, because they're usually done pretty poorly. And ultimately, if YouTube wants to incentivize creators in this way, or if it proves to be profitable or valuable, they're going to do it themselves, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, do we want to, guys, I think in wrapping up,
let's take 10 minutes. Let's take 5 minutes to talk about Bitcoin.
Jump in. Cred?
Sure.
Yeah, I do want to talk about Bitcoin. Cred, what are your thoughts on this damn shitcoin?
Yeah.
Jeez Louise.
Let me just bring up the correct tab.
It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay.
Right.
I've lost so much money this week.
Are we okay tech-wise?
We're okay.
Yes,
sir.
So we chatted earlier a bit about why we may have lost the level, or, was it fundamental reasons? Was it the fact that it's held up weaker every single time and it just finally got flushed out this time around? As I mentioned, I think you don't have to know the reason to be able to trade it properly or act accordingly, right? So one way or another, the reason this sort of 5.86K was so significant, and that was our reference point for our yearly lows, right? So back in November of last year, we kind of made the lowest weekly close, whether it was around that level. And then in February of 2018, we made that low at 6K. I can just delineate the level as such. You could also use, if you wanted to, the lowest weekly close of the year, which came out at 61.50, right? You can pick what. So basically, this it doesn't matter exactly how you choose to draw the level or what you pivoted off. The fact is, it's currently lost. Okay, so it was support, so all the way going back, it was support the whole year, and now it's been broken, right? And for any victim of any of my TA videos, you'll know that when support is broken, it becomes resistance until proven otherwise, right? And that's kind of what we're dealing with here. This structure that kind of held us up at a certain point, 5.86K structure, has currently been broken. So it was used for buying the whole year, and now that it's broken, any retracement, at least purely technically, we expect market participants to step in and sell, right? Why?
Right.
Again, it doesn't really matter, but for those who are interested, anyone long who was blindly buying sort of this 5.86K level, as has been a very trusty strategy all year, so I don't kind of blame you for doing it. Anyone who wasn't liquidated on this move down is very much underwater on those longs, right? So they're holding long positions that currently have very red P&Ls. So what happens? As the market retraces back into this broken level, their long P&L gets better, and they're going to look to mitigate their losing position. Yeah, well, they want to get out of those losing longs as close as they can.
Right, not take profit, but close, right?
Exactly, yeah. They want to get out as close as they can to break even, or, whatever, just try to get out of that position as it improves by pushing up. And what happens when longs are closing? That's shorts, isn't it? That's selling, which is why you usually get, when price retests a level, anyone who tried to buy it is trapped, retraces, they mitigate their position, longs turn into shorts, and you get continuation, right? So what can we actually do with this information? Well, for me to, I got a ton of questions being like, oh, 6K is broken. Where is the bottom? I would rather not guess where the bottom is, at least not until 5K is broken, right? What I would rather wait for, if I'm being conservative, is for price to actually reclaim the 6K level, right? And do something like this. Now, and obviously, ideally, start, as I'd expect, to start pushing away, right? Now, why is this better? Well, at that point, if price reclaims the 6.2K level, you have two types of traders trapped, right? So anyone who was shorting down here, aiming for continuation, they are trapped. Anyone shorting the yearly low itself is trapped. And then your third category, 3, not 2, is anyone who was short this retest of broken support turning to resistance is also trapped. Now, if it's a real trap, what does the market do? It squeezes. And it's going to squeeze. So if you're short and you're getting squeezed, price needs to go up for that to happen, right? Which is why I'd expect something like this. So in my opinion, summary version, 6K 5.8 was a key level of support. Key level of support gets broken, it turns into a key level of resistance. I do expect a bit more of a rubber band back up to those levels here. At 6,000. So at the time of speaking, the Bitcoin price is at 5,536. And what I've essentially delineated on the chart is if price can get back above 6,000 and reclaim that as support, we're likely to see quite a continued move up as those trapped traders get squeezed. But I mean, I'm not much of an indicator guy, but looking at stuff like the daily RSI, I don't think it's ever been as low as it is right now. It's at like 17 or something. It looks like the bottom has fallen out. It's crazy, right? And then usually when you get those kind of grossly oversold conditions, it's not uncommon for price to kind of rubber band back a bit, snap back in the opposite direction. But for reasons stated, until proven otherwise, I expect that to get sold into. If it does, I think we go below 5K to about 4.8, 4.9.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean that's kind of a scary thought, though. I don't necessarily disagree at all with those targets. The one thing that gives me optimism: how often do you look at longs versus shorts?
Not at all.
Okay, because right now shorts have peaked up. So you talked about squeezing those shorts if we break above 6K, 6,200 especially. Shorts have started to increase in the last 48 hours. Does that mean anything to you outside of people taking more short positions?
Well, I tried to make some useful data or basically a meaningful system based on these long shorts data with a bunch of friends, and we never really got to any kind of conclusion. So for me, it's something I kind of stopped paying attention to. And you also don't know if it's longs closing, for example. I think that can fuck with the data. Don't quote me on that. I was the least technical person from that group. But generally, look, if we reclaim 6.2, I'll know for a fact that way too many people are trapped for this not to squeeze. But until proven otherwise, 5.8, 6,000 is resistance that I expect the currently underwater longs, if they haven't been mitigated, if they haven't been liquidated, to start mitigating some of their losing positions, which will obviously turn into selling pressure.
Wow.
All right. Well, another dream smashed by.
Sorry, I mean, we're going to 20K tomorrow. Everyone.
Yes, there we go. Back on Hopium.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if you saw. I don't know if you saw my quality of shit posting lately, Cred. I hope you're proud. Maybe I'll earn an FF one day. But today I mentioned that 1 year ago, Bitcoin was $5,500, and within 33 days, it was 19,850. So crypto has a tendency to do crazy things. There's a little bit of hopium for you perma bulls out there. It only took 33 days 1 year ago to pump from this exact price up to all-time highs. So dream about that.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. I think that if we could just
Cred's so disappointed in me right now. He's like, there's so many other factors at play. Listen, there's so many TA gurus who hit me up on that tweet like, oh, but it's still listen, and it's a shit post, guy. I know. Listen, I know how to get those likes. I know what I'm doing.
Oh yeah. I mean, the Thanksgiving price is the same, right? So what could possibly go wrong?
the family dinner pump, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Family dinner pump. Thanks, Craig.
So yeah, Cred, thanks so much for coming on the show. I think that this has definitely been an awesome hour to get to chat with you. Your insight has been fantastic. You are welcome anytime you'd like to come back. So I'm going to just put that out there.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, man. So, Bert, you want to say something? Cool.
Go ahead. Close it.
To wrap things up, guys, just again, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate your continued patronage. We know there are a lot of you who got to hear about your projects, UUU and Cent. We will continue to follow those. If you have questions about anything, comments, please let us know. Don't forget to smash the like button, hit the subscribe, and turn on notifications so that when we go live, you are notified. Also, find us on your favorite platform, Spotify, iTunes, Google, wherever you listen to the podcast. And let us know your thoughts. Leave a comment and give us that 5-star rating so we can boost the page views and get us up there. So, guys, we appreciate you. We'll be back on Monday at 11:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. Have an awesome weekend.
Peace.
Cheers.